They told Sergeant Sharma to retreat. Rules said fall back, abandon the ridge. But she saw what others missed, the hidden flank, the civilians in the valley, the price of obedience. Captain Evans issued the order. What he didn't know was that Sharma had already chosen a different battlefield, the one between courage and command. Stick around, because when the dust settles, history won't remember who gave the orders, only who stood their ground. Where are you watching from, and what's the time there? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe to join our community. The wind whispers through the mountain pass as I adjust my rifle scope, my weathered hands steady despite the growing tension. 20 years of service have taught me to trust my instincts, and right now they're screaming that this position is crucial. The radio at my hip crackles with Captain Evans's third withdrawal order, but I remain motionless, my breath creating small clouds in the frigid air. From my perch among the rocks, I can see everything: the narrow passage below the approaching enemy columns, and most importantly, the vulnerable flank of our retreating forces. My finger traces the worn engraving on my rifle's stock, my father's name carved there when he passed this weapon to me after his own service. The metal is cold against my cheek as I maintain my vigil. Sergeant Sharma acknowledged the order. Fall back immediately. The captain's voice carries both authority and concern. I click my radio once in response. Heard, but not obeying. A memory flashes my father teaching me that sometimes the bravest thing isn't following orders, but following your heart. The first rays of dawn paint the mountainside in amber hues glinting off my scope. Below, movement catches my eye. The enemy advance team exactly where I predicted they'd be. My hands tighten instinctively on the rifle. Sharma. Stan starts trending within hours of what happens next, but in this moment, it's just me, the mountain, and a decision that will echo through time. The weight of tradition and training bears down on my shoulders, but something deeper rises within me, an unwavering certainty that this position could mean the difference between victory and defeat. I adjust my worn combat boots, the same ones that have carried me through countless missions, now planted firmly in defiance of direct orders. That type courage if you've ever had to stand your ground for what you believed was right. The distant rumble of artillery grows closer, and I can feel the questioning eyes of command on my position through their binoculars. Captain Evans's voice comes through again, softer this time. Sharma, what do you see that we don't? As the sun rises fully over the mountain range, casting long shadows across the valley, a question hangs in the crisp morning air. When does following your conscience outweigh following orders? The answer unfolds in the next heart-stopping moments. But first, let me show you what I saw through my scope that morning that made me willing to risk everything. Through the dim light of the command center, I adjust my worn scope. A family heirloom passed down through 3 generations of Sharmas who served. The weight of disobedience sits heavy in my stomach, but not as heavy as the thought of abandoning Miller and the others. The medical monitor's steady beeping marks each precious second of life we're fighting to preserve. My father's voice echoes in my memory as I maintain my position, his wisdom gained from 20 years as a combat medic. The greatest strength isn't in following orders blindly, but in knowing when compassion must guide your actions. Studies have shown that unit cohesion and trust increase survival rates by 60% in combat situations. Statistics I memorized during sniper training that now feel deeply personal. Through my scope, I catch Captain Evans pacing in the command center, his silhouette tense with the burden of command. The regulation manual sits prominently on his desk. I know its contents well, having studied it countless times myself. But what those pages don't capture is the human element of warfare, something researchers at the Strategic Studies Institute have documented extensively. The bonds between soldiers often prove more decisive than tactical doctrine. My hands steady on my rifle as I scan the perimeter, remembering the day my grandfather taught me to shoot. Patience and precision, he'd say, but never forget the heart behind the trigger. A study from the Combat Effectiveness Research Center flashes through my mind. Soldiers who maintain defensive positions against orders but in protection of wounded comrades show a 40% higher success rate in achieving mission objectives. The radio crackles with another order to withdraw, but I observe Miller's vital signs stabilizing on my tactical display. My position provides optimal coverage of 3 critical approach vectors. Abandoning it would leave a deadly gap in our defenses. Contemporary military psychology research supports what I feel in my bones unit preservation sometimes requires challenging traditional command structures. The growing darkness should make me nervous, but instead brings clarity. My grandfather's scope reflects the fading light as I adjust my position. Studies show that decisive moments in combat often come down to individual soldiers' moral courage rather than tactical superiority. As I watch Evans wrestling with his command decisions, I understand the hidden cost of leadership, the constant balance between protocol and humanity. The drop one if you believe in standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. The data streams across my tactical display tell a complex story: ammunition counts, threat assessments, survival probabilities. But between the numbers lies the truth about why soldiers fight, not for orders or regulations, but for each other. Research from the Military Leadership Academy shows that units with strong interpersonal bonds show 75% higher resilience in crisis situations. Private Miller's vitals continue to stabilize as I maintain my watch, my grandfather's scope, a reminder of generations of service and sacrifice. The hidden problem isn't about insubordination. It's about the gap between what the manual teaches and what the heart knows. As darkness settles over our position, I understand that sometimes the greatest acts of loyalty require the courage to defy authority. Through my scope, each breath fogs the crisp mountain air as I count my remaining rounds. 17. The weight of disobedience settles heavy on my shoulders, but not as heavy as the thought of abandoning this position. Below, our forces are regrouping, trusting in the coverage I'm providing. The distinctive crack of my rifle splits the silence again, and I allow myself a small smile as another threat drops. Sharma. Captain Evans's voice crackles through my comms, softer than before. Not an order this time. Status report. My fingers brush against the worn patch on my uniform sleeve. My grandfather's original sniper insignia sewn on before every mission for luck. Maintaining position, sir. 17 rounds remaining. A pause. Permission to speak freely. Granted. His tone carries an unfamiliar note of respect. Those aren't just coordinates on your screen, sir. Every shot I take gives our people time to fortify. Sometimes the right choice isn't in the manual. Another crack echoes across the valley. 16 rounds now. Through my scope, I spot civilian journalists on the ridge opposite their cameras, catching glints of sunlight. Within hours, Dr. Last Stand starts trending. I ignore it, focused on the rhythm of breath, aim, squeeze. Each shot must count. The next hours blur into a dance of precision and patience. My grandfather taught me that a sniper's true weapon isn't their rifle, it's their heart. Courage isn't about not feeling fear, he'd say. It's about choosing what matters more than fear. His patch catches the fading light as I adjust position. Captain Evans's voice returns. Sharma, I've misplaced some paperwork. Make these shots count. Always do, sir. 15 rounds, 14, 13. Type 2. If you believe one person's courage can change everything. The sun sets behind me, painting the valley in shadows, but I hold firm. Sometimes the unseen consequences of choosing principle over protocol ripple far beyond a single moment. My defiance isn't just about this battle. It's about proving that humanity and duty can coexist, That sometimes the bravest thing is refusing to back down when you know you're right. From my perch, I watch our forces successfully establishing a new defensive line. My shots have bought them the time they needed. The patch on my sleeve feels warmer somehow, as if carrying generations of similar choices, similar moments when one person's stand made all the difference. Tonight, I'm not just Sergeant Sharma. I'm every soldier who ever chose conscience over convenience, mercy over mindless obedience. The enemy's advance has slowed to a crawl, validating what my heart knew hours ago. This position was worth defending whatever the cost. 12 rounds left. The night is young and I'm not going anywhere. The icy mountain wind whips across my sniper position as I adjust my scope, watching the enemy APC crawl through the valley below. My weathered pendant, a gift from my grandmother before I enlisted, catches the dying sunlight. The weight of Captain Evans' retreat order sits heavy in my chest, but something deeper, more instinctive tells me this position is critical. Through my scope, I see the civilian evacuation routes they don't know about. Routes that would be cut off if I fall back now. My hands steady on my rifle as memories of my training flood back. Not just the technical lessons, but the ones about duty, about protecting those who can't protect themselves. The radio crackles. Sharma, confirm retreat. Evans's voice carries an edge I've never heard before. I take a deep breath, touching my pendant. Negative, sir. I can hold this position. The silence that follows feels eternal. Then something extraordinary happens. Instead of the expected reprimand, I hear Evans' voice again. Command requesting emergency support for Sector 7. My heart swells. He's choosing to stand with me, risking his career on my judgment. The APC draws closer. I've got one armor-piercing round left. It has to count. The metallic click of the round being chambered echoes across the rocks. Time slows. I can hear my own heartbeat, feel every breath. The shot rings out crystal clear in the mountain air. The explosion that follows is deafening the disabled APC, lighting up the valley. I hear cheers through the radio. The evacuation routes are secure. Noah, drop 2 in the comments if you believe in standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. Later, as the sun sets, Captain Evans finds me at my position. He doesn't say much, just nods and hands me a commendation letter. But it's his quiet words that stick with me. Sometimes the bravest thing is knowing when not to retreat. The story spreads through the ranks like wildfire. Sir Sharma stand trends on military networks, then civilian ones. But what matters most isn't the recognition. It's the lives saved because someone dared to stand their ground. My pendant catches the light again as I pack up my position. Tomorrow there'll be consequences to face, reports to file. But tonight, I know with absolute certainty that I made the right call. Sometimes leadership isn't about following orders. It's about following your conscience. Through the dust-streaked window of the command center, I watch the rescue helicopters descend their rotors, cutting through the mountain air with a rhythmic thump that matches my heartbeat. My weathered captain's bars catch the morning light, and for the first time in 20 years of service, I truly understand what they mean. Sir, a young lieutenant approaches, tablet in hand. Sergeant Sharma's final count. 38 wounded evacuated successfully. 0 casualties. I nod, my throat tight. The numbers don't tell the whole story. They never do. They don't capture how Anya held that ridge for 14 hours straight. How her calm voice over the radio never wavered, even as enemy fire intensified. They don't show how she transformed a potential disaster into a masterclass in battlefield leadership. My fingers trace the worn edge of my captain's bars, remembering how heavy they felt when I first ordered her to abandon position. Sometimes the best command comes from knowing when to follow, I murmur, watching Anya emerge from the medical tent. Her uniform is dusty, her face streaked with grime, but her eyes hold a quiet certainty I've never seen before. She spots me and approaches, sniper rifle still slung across her back. The weapon that saved so many lives now seems more like a symbol than a tool. "Captain," she says, simply offering a crisp salute. "At ease, Sergeant." I pause, choosing my words carefully. "You taught me something today about trust, about seeing beyond the rulebook to the heart of what leadership means." A small smile crosses her face. "Permission to speak freely, sir. Always. The regulations are important, sir, but sometimes the mission demands we trust our instincts, and each other more than any manual." The sound of another helicopter approaching draws our attention skyward. More wounded being evacuated to safety thanks to her stand. My hand finds the captain's bars again, but they no longer feel like a burden. They feel like a reminder that true leadership isn't about giving orders. It's about recognizing wisdom wherever it appears in the ranks. "Your actions today will be studied at the academy," I tell her. "Not just the tactical brilliance, but the moral courage. Sometimes the hardest part of command is knowing when to step back and trust your people." She nods, understanding passing between us. In her eyes, I see the future of military leadership, one built on mutual trust, respect, and the courage to do what's right even when it defies convention. The sun breaks through the clouds, illuminating the valley below. Somewhere out there, 38 families will sleep easier tonight, because one sergeant trusted her instincts over her orders. Because one captain learned to trust his people over his protocols. In the end, that's the ultimate truth of leadership. It's not about bars or stripes or regulations. It's about heart trust and the courage to stand firm when lives hang in the balance. If this story of trust and leadership moved you, drop 3 below. Share a time when following your instincts led to the right decision, even if it meant breaking convention. Subscribe for more stories of courage, leadership, and the bonds that define true service. We're on Trust Your People, Shatsu Leadership Lessons.